And welcome to another edition of I Love Black People. And today we're just blessed to have a wonderful sister. And I call her sister, but I really should say cuz. That's so amazing. She's been doing a great amount of work that kind of really connects so many parts of our lives that we don't normally get to see, but we all feel and are exposed to. We have an artist with us today, and her name is Ryan Watson. Thank you, Sister Watson, for coming on and sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I always let the guests kind of give their background so the folks know you. I've done some bad jobs of giving people's bios. So why don't you share, with our audience, who is Sister Ryan Watson, and take us on this artistic journey.
Okay. So, again, my name is Ryan Watson. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I am the oldest daughter. I have a younger sister and a brother. I spent most of my childhood in Cincinnati, but my parents were made an effort to make sure that we at least had a few vacations where we got to travel outside of Cincinnati and connect with family that were across the country. So appreciative of that. And I think that exposure at that age started something in me to want to know more about, life outside of where I grew up. And I went on to go to college. I studied industrial engineering in undergrad, and I loved the idea of creating and how things come to be. And so I thought engineering actually was a pathway to figuring that out. And it partly was, but as I started working as an engineer, I discovered quickly that some of the interest that I had was actually more in marketing and the ideation behind creating things. So where those ideas started was a lot of times with the marketers and brand managers, and the engineers actually did more of the execution and delivering of the ideas. So I went back to grad school, or I went to grad school, got my MBA, and then made the transition into marketing. And what I love about marketing, what I love about engineering also is, as I mentioned, the creation piece as well as storytelling. So the ability to um, sell something to someone, you have to create a story and understand why this person might want this. And my interest in exploring cultures and, like I mentioned,
No,
traveling.
I don't mean to interrupt. You're really taking this for a leap. Now, I know it sounds pretty natural to you. You start off in engineering, and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make us think marketing and engineering is the same thing. Break it down. Look, talk to us a little. Look, I know you see things with your eyes closed. We trying to figure this out. This sister is an artist. You tell me about the marketing. She started off as an engineer. I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have nothing artistic about me. I can't market. I need so much help. Like, let's discuss, and because so many of our listeners are in one profession and have interest in other. How do we get from engineering to, like, give me a little, some of the cues or some of the things you could share with us to understand? Maybe we all have some of that in us, or maybe we can unleash it. But how do we get that? This is pretty interesting. Please.
Well, just the last point you made, everyone does have it in them. So it is a matter of tapping into it and unleashing it. But for me, so growing up, I, like an engineer, for example, there's many disciplines. I was industrial. So engineering to me was around what I studied mainly was around like time studies and efficiencies and how things ran. But growing up, and I'm sure many engineers can relate to this, you see stuff and you want to know how it was made. Like what's underneath all of this? You look at a car, like what is underneath the hood? You look at, even clothes, like what fabrics work better together, and perfumes, makeup, all of this stuff is like tapping into different disciplines of engineering, buildings, how they are made. And that to me is creativity. If you have the mind of how was this created, how did this get started, and you're studying how that happens, that curiosity to me is that
Right.
engineering.
I was about to say that curiosity, that intellectual curiosity, like what's behind it. All right, I'm following you now. At first, I was like, this
Okay.
thing's so far apart. All right, go give me. Keep us
So
walking.
then, okay, so after the car is built, after you figure out, okay, I need all this stuff, I got this system down, the car is running. Why? Who wants this car? Who's gonna buy this car? Does this car need addition, like more features? Like, are children gonna ride in this car? And so that part, that other side is actually the marketing side. That's the branding side. So the curiosity now on like the way people think and the way people use and consume the thing that you just made is how you translate this object and getting it into people's hands. And so telling that story and creating the journey for a person is the marketing. And that's what I was wanting to get closer to. And then I also know that at some companies, they study people and they create solutions through engineering to answer those things that these people have questions on. And so the ideation side a lot of times does begin with marketing. So I have, a consumer need. So now I'm talking to my engineers, hey, can we create a new flavor of this because this is now a trend. People love the way, strawberry guava taste. What can we do? So I'm talking to my chemical engineers, my R&D team, and they're making it. And then I'm saying, okay, now I got a population of people that want this. I'm going to go into their market and I'm going to sell this product. I'm going to make a beautiful commercial. And so that is how I see marketing and engineering coming together. And with all of that, actually behind that is art. I think art is the overarching piece between marketing and engineering. And so that's what I have
Stop
recently
it.
done.
Wait a minute. Come on now, listen. A good sister, Ryan. Now, you got me with the engineering. I'm on board. I'm kind of clear. I didn't see it, but now I do. I'm a little slow on
Okay.
that. I got the marketing piece. I saw now the people coming together. Now you're gonna tell me this is art involved? Break the art part down. I'm picking up what you're putting down so far, but go ahead and go slow with this art part. Talk to me.
Okay. I think the cool thing about art, and people used to always say this, um, there's no wrong answer in art. There can't be. With math and science, there is a way to get to a solution, an answer. There's like formulas, and you can like test them out, and other people can replicate them, right? But with art, it's so subjective, and so that part of like not having a right or wrong answer, I think, actually is what makes something to me as art, and something I can classify as art, where someone may see something totally different and may not think the same. So I think art has more flexibility, I guess. There's probably a way to draw a straight line, so if you want to get that technical, but I think what we define as art is left up to the individual. And so that's why I say that kind of overarching bridges together the marketing as well as engineering. It is the way you are kind of telling that story of those components within marketing as well as engineering that art is.
All right. Now tell me, with that analytical breakdown of the artistry, how does that fit into what you're doing now and how you're living out this manifesting this art?
Yeah, so I've worked in corporate for a while, like post grad, and in my experiences and working in corporate in America, I have had some encounters with just all types of encounters with people who are questioning, why I'm there, um, you know, in some places I've been where I was the only Black person, I have people asking questions of me that I don't believe they're asking white colleagues. And so, in these experiences in corporate, as well as even in my schooling in elementary through middle school, high school, and even college, I sometimes found myself being like the only person of color, the only Black person in a room or in a friend group. And so what I've done is I journal, and what I realized was I was having these experiences that weren't unique to a person of color or a Black person. And I thought it would be really cool to tell a story about my experiences that I've had in these spaces. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying, the curiosity piece, as well as storytelling and understanding kind of like human psychology. And so that created like an idea for me to talk about my experience specifically with my hair in these spaces. And so I created some art. It's called Tell Your Hair Story. And it is a collection of pieces that tell Ryan, my hair story in
All
these
right,
spaces.
now you said okay. So now we got you. You're telling the story about being the only sister in many of these spaces, and I think what's interesting about the way you said it, you talk about it as somebody who's coping, but it even sounds like you're coping with it in a positive, proactive way. And I know some of these settings can be difficult. I left the corporate space a long time ago, so I definitely can reach back, especially engineers. Engineers are the worst. Oh my God. Like they don't have people skills with each other in general. So literally having them deal with race and sex and other people that they're not used to, they say
Mm-hmm.
some very problematic things. I've had some of the most ignorant, well, anyway, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. So I think all of us understand and can relate to your point about how being in these spaces you're treated. I've even had people reference the pandemic, how being remote has been more refreshing because they didn't have to deal with the context of those microaggressions inside
Mm-hmm.
of an office space because they were now just dealing with it with a little Zoom call miss, which was definitely more manageable than a physical confrontation. So take us and I think that's why even some of what you're saying is therapeutic. We talk about the journaling, and I think it's always good to record what's going on with these folks anyway. So the journaling seems pretty, a positive technique. And then as it relates to now taking it, and it's almost like you took the journaling that people talk about taking notes right now, and you've taken it literally to a three-dimensional next level, probably fourth dimension. Writing two-dimensional story. You're literally telling a visual story about things that happen that we can relate to. So talk about, your pieces, talk about how this relates to your experiences. And I mean, I think prior to our interview, you talked about how this relates to Black women in particular, but then you even gave me some ways this can relate to other people's journeys. But tell your hair story. I think is hot. Talk about the story then.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, one of the pieces, so as I mentioned, because I journal, I was able to have like some type of documentation about some of these encounters that I've had. Journaling is also just helpful in getting down your own thoughts on paper and being able to have that as a reference point. I also like to look back at some of the things and see, have I made improvements? And in that process, I started capturing, I started seeing some themes around issues that I was having in the workplace. And then I also recognize that this is something that has been with me for decades. It wasn't just at work. So one incident I remember in particular made me stop and think, like, okay, I got to do something about this. So I was at work, and I remember I had started at this new job, and I did not want this is kind of weird, but like I didn't know how I wanted to represent myself with my hair. So my hair now is not relaxed. I don't straighten it. So on its own, it's kind of like big and curly, can look like a big fro. And I'm like, do I want to go to work looking like that? I decided that I wanted to wear it in a ponytail. So people don't know what my real length is. They don't know how maybe I would style it on weekends or whatever. And so I had been wearing my hair in a ponytail, and I came into work, and one day I had it out, and I'm walking to my office. This is like first thing in the morning, and a white woman comes from behind me that works on my team. Didn't know it at the time, but she came up from behind me and grabbed my hair and put her hands in my hair from like behind. And I'm like, caught off guard. I don't see her walking up to me because she's coming from behind, and I'm like in this hallway where other coworkers are walking past, and in a split second I had to make a choice about how to respond, and I ended up like dodging, kind of like pulling my head away from her hand. She let go, and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, your hair is so different today. And I'm like, yeah. And then I like walked away. Like I didn't address the problem. I didn't call her out for touching my hair. I just kind of froze because I hadn't practiced that, and I don't expect to go into work and have to tell people don't touch my body. And so that I was like, this is like a very kind of like monumentous moment at work where it tied back to like how my hair was being styled. And that was
Man, I wish I could have grabbed that woman and said, "What are you doing? Get your hands up!" Okay, I just had to
I
say it out
know.
loud. I had to listen, and I'm not putting words in your mouth. When you just came, but again, I had to leave corporate environment because I didn't have the sensibilities. Because that right there, if I had seen that woman do that to you, I would have raised my voice, and I would have been leaving the job that day. It would have been like mid-morning. Mr. Skinner is no longer with us. But
Yeah,
I'm sure you were more graceful. You were more graceful with that moment. To talk to me.
in hindsight, I wish I would have responded different. I think that's part of the problem, is that we have to make these like second decisions. And the onus is on us to like do the right thing most of the time. We have to control ourselves, or even if we make a big stink, we have to like, sometimes it's painful to even talk about the experience, like to retell the story. And so either way you go, it's just like you're met with, obstacles around the situation. And so I ended up with this person in particular, I ended up, talking to her about other things. I didn't go back to that story and say, hey, that one time when you did this. But if I could go back in time, I definitely would have let her know that, it is not appropriate to touch my body at work without my permission. And it is never okay to touch someone's hair, especially African American woman's hair. This is like, she needs to do some research and understand what this means to have someone be subjected in this manner at work. And so that actually, so I said that was the impetus for one of the pieces that I have in my collection called The Reach. So I hired a photographer, and I have a white friend that I brought along with me to the photo shoot, and we reenacted that scenario at work. And it's like in a series of 3 photos where you see this white woman's hand reaching for my hair from all directions, and you're just like, you see that what I tried to capture was like the agony of the situation in my face. And each picture, my facial expression changes, and then in the last photo, I'm actually grabbing her hand and removing it from my hair. So, the cool thing, I guess, about all of some of these experiences is that I've been able to create this art and tell a story about my experience, which can ultimately educate. Like, the girl who touched my hair actually follows me on Instagram, so I'm sure she's seen the pictures. She may not know that that's about her, but I have been able to take some point of trauma and actually, one, tell a story, create some art around it. But I think what is even more just like this was the right thing to do was that I've had so many women come up to me and say, this picture captures exactly what has happened to me. And this is what I did in that situation. And creating that dialogue is also a form of healing and therapy for people to be able to have someone else that I'm not in this alone. Like, we've gone through this together. And I think that's the beautiful part of this journey that I've been on with the art is bringing people together to talk about these stories.
So how do you do that? I mean, so what you just described, using my engineering brain, it's so it may sound, it seems almost IE-esque, because literally you're bringing together like a formula, and you bring in the photographer, you brought in the white hands, like literally it's almost like you're on the manufacturing floor and you like created this thing. So the creation part and the art of it is pretty hot. Like, it's almost like you designing, like you literally designed this thing, of course capturing something that happened, but it was almost your interpretation of what happened. It's literally profound. Like, I mean, again, I'm getting caught up on the engineering. Like, I really felt it when you just said I hired a photographer. It just took me to this, like, again, when you're like trying to build something, is this the right person?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I want. You're having the back and forth. And as engineers, we may not be the experts, the people on the floor, been doing this forever, blah, 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 but you're literally engaging them to get them to see your vision and get them to use their technical or their expertise to get the outcome or to deliver the product. I mean, it's kind of awesome in that. I mean, anyway, that's hot.
Oh, see,
And the
you're
white
connecting the
hands.
dots. Now you see how art,
Wow.
marketing, engineering has all come
Wow.
together.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so how
Yeah.
do you get the dialogue to come through? I mean, is this because when you have like exhibits, or how, or I
Yeah.
guess people see it on social media? How are these conversations coming about?
Yeah. So I actually had my debut show back in June in Houston, Texas. So I had an art show called Deeply Rooted, and I had all of my artwork on display at the show. And then I also invited other artists that created art touching on Black hair. So they were also part of the exhibit, invited hundreds of people to come to this exhibit. And during the exhibit, one of the other components that I wanted to make sure we had was a panel discussion about the topic. So the topic being just Black hair in general. And a lot of conversations are about Black hair, but sometimes it's from like styling, it's from which products do you use? And I wanted to talk less about that, and even less about maybe the forms of beauty, because I think there's conversations around, representation of different hair textures and stuff in marketing and media, and I didn't want it to go necessarily down that train of thought, because I also wanted it to include men. Um, so men have a lot to do with our experiences with hair as well, and men also have hair stories. I think, like, men, Black, white, whatever race you are, we all have hair stories, and so it was important for me to have a dialogue and include a male in the conversation. So it was part art show, part panel. Had a moderator. We had discussions. Each of the people on the panel had different situations happening. One woman had dealt with like cancer and loss of hair from chemo. Another one was like a hair blogger, influencer, lifestyle influencer. She talked about that. And then I had a male on the panel who went bald, and he talked about his transition from, his hair getting thin, and then deciding to do an experiment where he just shaved it off to see what he looked like before it was time. And then he grew it back, and he had hair for about 5 years so he could really appreciate having the hair. And then he grew out his beard. And so, that,
Oh, easy on the ball brothers with the beard. We're not all dealing with these issues of hair story. Okay, maybe because I'm bald with a beard. So yeah, I can
everybody
relate
needs a
though.
hair
So
story, though. You got a bad hair
every,
story at this point.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's again. This is interesting. I mean, again, these are things I've not manifested any artistic. So just
Are
to
you
hear,
bald?
I'm bald. So yes, I'm
And you have a
bald.
beard?
I
Bald
got
and
my eye
beard.
on you. So man, exactly. Thank you very much, Sister Ryan. All right. That being said, what are some of the things you're doing next with this? I think this has been awesome, and I want to wrap it up and allow people to kind of get, this was almost like a teaser. I pray that they get a chance to. I mean, I think there's some stuff with your ministry with this that's also key. That's very, the spiritual connection part is so important to you. I
Mm-hmm.
know. How do you see the next steps in your journey, and then how do you see ways people can reach out and not touch your hair, but can contact you?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be invited to the Essence Festival that was this past 4th of July or July 2nd, 3rd, 4th weekend in New Orleans. So I had my artwork on display at an exhibit called Essence of My Hair. So that was just word of mouth. Someone had seen and heard about my work in Houston and reached out and got me a part of that show in New Orleans. I would love to have this go to other cities. And
so many people are in the space to interpret our lives for us and to give voice to us who may not have the artistic or even the agency to speak out. I just want to say thank you for that. And humbly, as always in this, we say, I am because we are, and I definitely am because of you and a whole bunch of folks that you know. So thank you so much, Sister Ryan Watson, for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for the platform. Thank you for being a host of this wonderful program and all the work that you do. You have paved the way for people like me to have the space to even or even have the courage. Just watching you and the things that you do has inspired me. So thank you, cousin.
All right, cuz. Appreciate it.